The first line that I'm going to cover is starting after bishop e2, short castling, when black plays the move c5. This is not that often seen, but it is a viable option. In fact, I think that it is even a bit underrated, and lately it appeared in the games of the pitch specialist Boris Chitobashi from Bulgaria. Now, if you are a Sicilian player, and if you play against the calm system with bishop e2, you can easily transpose into the dragon with bishop e2, say after a move like rook e1, c takes d4, knight takes d4. However, as not most of the players like to play that calmly in the dragon, I will suggest another approach. Sorry. Karpov chose in this position d5, but then we're having a kind of a Benoni-like position, which is not something that the e4 players are heading for. Therefore, I will suggest another approach. We just trade on c5, d takes c5, and now we develop our pieces with bishop e3, hitting the pawn on c5 and intending to play queen c1 and rook f to d1 to attack the opponent's queen on the d file. Again, sorry. The most common move here is b6, after which we reply with queen c1, but I will also give you an additional line. The one that starts with the move bishop c4 contains a very interesting trap in one of the traps that the opponent might fall for. If they play here bishop b7, for example, the trap is e5, knight needs to retreat, let's say to g4, and after that we have this hit, bishop takes f7, with the point that the knight on g4 is hanging in the line king takes f7, knight g5 check, the knight is hanging. And on the other hand, if black doesn't play knight g4 in this situation, if they play knight e7, then e6 is coming with the tempo, breaking the castle of the opponent and having clearly better position, while knight h5 will self-trap the knight. The knight will be trapped on h5. Well, if it was that good, everybody would have played. Bishop c4 though should be answered with a move like knight c6. And okay, if you want to play for a trap, you can try this. I don't think that this is bad for white. You can play this position, say after queen e2, rook a d1, etc. There is only one played game after bishop c4, so the chance that your opponent goes wrong is really high. Let me just add it that after bishop c4, if black trades the queens, we keep a slight edge. After rook a d1, bishop b7, e5, knight g4, we play bishop f4, we defend this pawn, we want to play rook e1, e6 in some lines, and also we threaten to seize the center with the move knight d5, so here white is a slightly better one. Possible line is bishop takes f3, pawn takes f3, knight takes e5, to which we just play bishop d5 and we gain the exchange on a8, knight c6, take on e5, take on a8, and because we have the only open file in our disposal, we are slightly better here. We have the chances to win. This is a kind of surprising weapon. Sorry again, I don't know what's going on. But if you don't want to play on tricks, you can play in another way. After bishop e3, b6, you can go for the move queen c1, like I told you before, just vacating the d1 square for our rook, intending to hit the queen with the tempo and to place the rook on the open file. After that, bishop b7 is the most probable reply for black, hitting the pawn on e4 and also vacating the c8 square for the queen. The game goes rook d1, queen c8, bishop h6. This is what I'm suggesting you. We can sacrifice a pawn, but in return to get really very nice compensation with the open file and the hanging situation of the black pieces after knight takes e4, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, we play queen e3. The pawn on c2 is untouchable because after queen c3 check, black is losing the bishop. And if black wants to keep the extra pawn, they need to play to defend the bishop somehow with the queen. Queen e6 is not optimal because after knight g5 black is again losing material, which means that queen f5 is the only move, to which we calmly play a rook to d2. Just a second, I forgot one more move. That move is queen to b7 in this position. This is the other way to defend the bishop, but again it is not ideal because after knight g5 the bishop doesn't have too many squares to go. Bishop takes e2 fails again because of queen f6 and queen takes c2. Bishop takes g2 is simply bad because the bishop is trapped after that on g2. Therefore also bishop d5 is bad because of this check and the bishop is hanging. And if the bishop goes to c6, we play check, forcing the king to go back, and we attack the h pawn. And white has a very strong initiative here after queen to h3. Say h5, we just take it. Just take this pawn with almost decisive threats already. G takes h5 is answered with the saddle queen to f5, protecting the e4 square and intending to mate the opponent with queen h7. White is winning already. So I guess that queen f5 is the strongest move that black can play in this situation, but still we have very good compensation for the sacrifice pawn after rook d2, intending simply to double the rooks or to bring this rook to e1 to attack the bishop and the pawn on the e file, and in some moments we also want to play knight h4 and to win the bishop. So the move rook d2 is also defense of the c2 pawn. Again black cannot take it because of the standard idea queen c3 check. If they defend the g5 square with the move h6, we play knight h4, queen e6, rook e1 with trouble on the e file. We just want to go back with the bishop and to take something on this file. Black is not well developed. This piece out of the game, and you can definitely give it a try if you like in your games. Some possible continuation here is bishop d5, check on c3, king h7, and now we can take the bishop on d5, making use of the weakness of the diagonal. Queen takes d5, bishop f3, queen g5, aiming to take back the material, but after knight takes g6 we are regaining the pawn, because on the next move we are going to take one of the rooks with a clear advantage thanks to the fact that this king is in a vulnerable situation, and also the bishop is much stronger than the knight in these positions. A couple of more lines after rook d2. If e5, we can choose between rook e1, similarly like before, but also rook d6 is an interesting option, activating the pieces. And in case of of knight c6 trying to develop, we can play knight g5. Actually, this is trapping the bishop on e4 because the only way to save it is to take on c2, but then this check on c3 is working for white. No, sorry, not the check, but first g4 intending this check is winning the bishop for us, and white is winning. So if you want to try and surprise your opponent in this real line, you can be sure that he really is going to be shocked. You can try this line with the pawn sacrifice.